Kakadosh, Erev Tov, we're talking about now, we're doing Masechet Rosh Hashana Daf 28:1. So in the Gemara, we were talking about, Elai Amar Leolam Chaser, if we're going to tell you that always the month was going to be lacking, so if the month was going to be lacking, so why are you going to be Mechalel Shabbat? Which means if you're going to tell me that the Adar, which is always before Nisan, is always lacking, so if it's always going to be lacking, so why are you going to be Mechalel Shabbat? So answers the Gemara, Mishum the mitzvah lekadesh al riyah. There's a mitzvah lekadesh et riyah, meaning there's a mitzvah to do it. So since there's a mitzvah to be mekadesh et riyah, so that's why they said you're going to be mechalel Shabbat in order to be mekadesh et chodesh. Okay, ikadamni. There are those that say, Amar Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman. Afanan amitanina. We also learned it in a Mishnah. It says al shnei chodashim mechalelin et Shabbat. On 2 months we're going to be mechalel Shabbat. Al Nisan and Tishri. On Nisan and Tishri. So says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me that Adar is always going to be Chaser, so that's all you're going to be Mechalel. Why? Because it's a mitzvah, lekadesh, al riyah, there's a mitzvah to do it. If you're going to tell me that sometimes it's lacking and sometimes it's a full month, so why are you going to be Mechalel? Nabre ha'idna, right? We're going to make it into a leap year, right? Which means we're going to make it, then we're going to make it holy the next day when the Edim come. So says the Gemara, it all depends. If the 30th day comes out on Shabbat, hachanami, then you're right. Hachamayiskina, what are we dealing with? The 31st day was on Shabbat. So the mitzvah lekadesh apiyariyah, that now you have the mitzvah to be mekadesh apiyariyah. So if the din don't come, anyway they have to make it into an extra day of the month. They're going to make it into Rosh Chodesh. So Mati, Rav Kahana comes and he asks the following question from the Mishnah, and it says like this: Keshe Bet HaMikdash kayam, mechalelin afal kulan. So you know that when the Bet HaMikdash was around, so then they were mechalelin, right, the Shabbat, also on every month, meaning not only just on Nisan and Tishri, just like the Mishnah says, on every month. Every month they were mechalel Shabbat. Why? Because of the takana of the Qurban of Musafar Rosh Chodesh, that we wanted it to be in the proper time. Remember that on Rosh Chodesh, they bring a special Qurban. Okay, that's the Qurban that we bring on Rosh Chodesh. That's why we have a special maftir for Rosh Chodesh. Everything is done on Rosh Chodesh. So midikulu lav nishun the mitzvah lekadesh al riyah, from the fact that it's not going to be a mitzvah that we're talking about, that it's going to be a mitzvah to be mekadesh al riyah. So it says Nisan v'Tishri nami lav nishun the mitzvah lekadesh al riyah. So is it not also that Nisan and Tishri is also it's a mitzvah lekadesh al pi riyah? So now, if you're going to tell me that sometimes it's full and sometimes it's lacking, that's why they're going to be mechalel el Shabbat. Why? Because we have a safek. So since we have a safek, we don't know when it's going to be. When it's going to become the Rosh Chodesh? When is it? So since we don't know, it's a big problem. What? Every month because of the Qurban of the Rosh Chodesh, right? But on Nisan and Tishri, because of Pesach and the Sukkot and everything, we want to find out when it is. If we don't know when Rosh Chodesh, nowadays, Baruch Hashem, we have a calendar. Everything is set up for us. We could go to sleep at night, wake up, we know exactly when is everything. In the olden days, they didn't know. Right? They had to wait. When are they coming? They're going to testify. Is it a new moon? Not the new moon? Did they actually see it? Not see it? What's going on? We have to find out. Which one? Yeah, the months. So says the Gemara, Ela'i amrad leolam chaser. So now, if you're going to tell me that really we're talking about that it's going to be chaser, right? That means it's always going to be a lacking of the month. So why do you have to be mechalel Shabbat? So really, be'emet, it is a question. It means if be'emet the Dara Samuch Nisan is always chaser, so why do you be'emet you have to be mechalel Shabbat? So Kiyata Ula Amar, when Ula came, he went and he said, Abru al Elul, right? Really, be'emet, we're talking about that they made ani chodesh haibur in Elul in Eretz Yisrael. V'amar Ula yadei chavrim b'blai mai tributa avdina b'adai. Right? And we know also what is a good thing about that. Yeah, which means, do they actually know how good it is that we actually came and we made Elul into a leap year? Right? Why is it so good? Ulamar mishum yarkaya. He says because of the yirakot, which means that if they're going to come, right? If they're going to come 2 days to Sufim, that they can't come and they can't gather the vegetables from the field. If Kippur is going to come out on a Friday, so then they're going to have to take it 2 days before. And until Shabbat, it's not going to be good. So because of that, they went and they were me'abed et HaChodesh in order that Kippur will not be, right, on Yom Shishi. And it's going to be on Shabbat. even until nowadays, if you paid attention, we mentioned this once, the calendar nowadays is fixed in a way that Kippur can never be on a Friday or on a Sunday. It's always Thursday or Shabbat. It can never be on a Friday or a Sunday, right? It's purposely done. Okay? Rabbi Yacha bar Chanina amar. So Rabbi Yacha bar Chanina says, Mishum metaya. He says it's not only that, it's also because of likvor tamet. Meaning not only just because of the vegetables, you're going to start plucking the vegetables, and then by the time it comes Shabbat, it's not going to be good. Also because of burying people. My benai, why? Because remember that you're not allowed to bury anyone on Shabbat. You're also not allowed to bury anyone on Yom Kippur, right? You're allowed to bury on Yom Tov, but not on Yom Kippur. What? You're allowed to. You're allowed to bury someone on Yom Tov. Of course, I've been there, done that, right? In Gibraltar. In Gibraltar, on Yom Tov Sheni, they bury people. Anyway, it was done through Amamin, which means through Goyim, even though technically speaking, Maran is posek, like the Gemara, that on Yom Tov Rishon, it's done through Goyim. Yom Tov Sheni, we learned this. Very good, Chazak Baruch. On Yom Tov Sheni, right, we do it through the Jews. So I asked in Gibraltar, I told them, so 1 second, so why don't we do it? So they said, because everything anyway was done by the Goyim. Meaning, who were the ones that actually dug up the grave? Anyway, it was a goy. If it would have been Jews, then in a Hanami, a Jew would be permitted to come on Yom Tov Sheni, dig the hole, right, and bury. But we used to bury on Yom Tov Sheni. My grandmother was actually buried on Yom Tov Sheni, right? We're talking about probably 20 years ago. Yeah, she was buried on Yom Tov Sheni. No, but I'm talking about, 20 years ago is... Depends on the age. Yeah, of course. My grandparents, Gibraltar. Yeah. So she was buried on Yom Tov Sheni. And when I was in Gibraltar now, we're talking about the last here 9 years. So 9 years ago, we used to bury Yom Tov Sheni. We were there. Yom Tov Sheni, they would bury. There was no, you're allowed to. But on Kippur, you're not allowed to. And on Shabbat, you're not allowed to. So if you would have Kippur and Shabbat 2 days in a row, you're not going to be able to. Now, nowadays, Baruch Hashem, there's a freezer. So you put you put on the freezer and that's it. There's no freezer. You know what it is? 2 days with the body decomposing outside, the heat.
Over there it was too hot.
Yeah, so it's a problem. So he says, my benayu, what's the difference between them? Ike benayu, the difference between them is Yom Kippurim shechaliot achar Shabbat. Kippur that falls out on Sunday. According to the Mandamar, because of Metaya, so again, you would do the same thing. You would make the month of Elul an extra day, in order that it shouldn't come out on Sunday, because again, you have the same thing, Shabbat and Sunday. What are you going to do with the niftar? It's a problem. But according to the Manda Amar, that he's going to be Mishum Yakaya because of the vegetables, leimat kabaya lehu, when are you going to need it? In the nighttime. So in the nighttime, you do it. You go get it. What's the big deal? Manda Amar, according to the Manda Amar, because of vegetables. Le'abre Mishum Yakaya. But one thing, what about the other Manda Amar? That says because of the deceased. So he says, he says, no, to do with Yom Tov that comes out before or after Shabbat. According to the Mandamar, because of Yerekia, because of the vegetables, Mabrinan, you would still do it, right? Because you're allowed to take, because if not, then you have a problem of taking from the vegetables from Shabbat Yom Tov. Okay, Mandamar Meshumetaya, if Shabbat Meh, you could do it through the Goyim. Amameh again, or the Goyim, which means that the Goyim could come and they could bury, right, on Yom Tov. And that's what we already mentioned. So says the Gemara, but even according to the Mandamar that holds, because of the people that are deceased, that you could still do it with the goyim, but still do it because of the vegetables. Meaning, until now, we're understanding that they both hold of each other. It's not that there's a machloka between them. Okay? So says the Gemara, efshar bechamime. He says, no, you could do, what you do is that even if the vegetables became bad, what you do is you put them in warm water, and all of a sudden it goes back to the original form. Right? It's like a croissant that after a day that it might not be there, you put it in a microwave for a few seconds, in an oven for a few seconds, and all of a sudden, it becomes back to normal. Yeah? Fine. So says the Gemara, yeah, if so, so if so, why are we only talking about in Bavel? Even in itself should be the same. It says not ledidan chavilan lealma, ledidu lo chavilu alma. He says in Bavel, right? So it says there's not a lot of mountains. So since there's not a lot of mountains, a lot of humidity, it's very it's very hot. So it says, so therefore it's good that it's going to become because of the vegetables and everything, that's not going to be bad, or because of the deceased that they shouldn't decompose. But for them in Eretz Yisrael, since there's a lot of mountain, a lot of air, so therefore there's no problem. Which means that even if it's going to be, it's not going to rot that much. It's not going to decompose that much. But the vegetables are not going to get so ruined that quick. So it says the Gemara, any is it so? ועתני רבא בר שמואל יכול שכשם שמעברין את השנה לצורך, כמה מעברין את החודש לצורך. He says, just like if you need to, you can make the year into a leap year. So to the month, you can make it into a leap year, which means you could just add an extra day. Talmud Lomar comes to teach you, HaChodesh hazeh lachem Rosh Chodashim, kazeh re'eh v'kadesh, which means, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, when you're going to see the month, the way that it is, the moon, the way that it is, now you have to make it sanctified. So it comes out that the Braita is teaching you that you don't have the permission to make it to add on an extra day once you already saw the Chidush Levanah. Meaning, once you already saw the moon the way it's supposed to look by Rosh Chodesh, come on, no, that's it. You can't do anything else afterwards, right? You can't you redo it or add on to it. That's it. Kaddish, you finish the story. So Rava says like a question. Kan labero, kan lekadesho. He says when we're talking about where you're making the Chodesh, right, maleh, and that you could do it letzorech, right? The other one is lekadesho. What is the kadesho? Right? When we're talking about lekadesho, is to sanctify it. This is what it means to say. Yachol, I would have thought to say shekshem shemarbinim teshalem dechodesh etzorech kamul tishinu dechodesh etzorech. Tamul lomar chodesh lechem kazeh raeh vekadesh. What does that mean? We have to see the month, and then we're able to come and sanctify the month. Without seeing the month, you cannot do anything. You have to see it. Once you see it with your eyes, now you can sanctify it. Without that, you cannot do anything. Just like Rabbi Shimon Levi says, "Ma'yamim al ha'edim al hachodesh shenira bizmano labero ve'em ma'yamim al ha'edim al hachodesh shelo nira bizmano lekadeshot." You know, when we come and we're going to start warning or giving, we're going to try to scare them. Why? Because especially it happened many times that they were goyim, right, or kutim or other things that they came and they wanted to play tricks on us. So they come and they say, we saw the new moon. So it wasn't just anybody comes in and say, okay, fine, we accept your testimony. That's it. They would ask some questions. How did you see it? Where did you see it? Behind the clouds, in front of the clouds. They used to ask. It wasn't just stam. So he says, when they used to come and they would come and they would get them scared. On the 30th day, right, when they didn't come and they didn't testify yet. So he says, in order to make it into a chodesh mu'bar. But if they wouldn't see it, and even if you needed to make a chaser, they wouldn't do it. So says the Gemara, any is it so? He always used to which means just in case they're going to say they saw it. So isn't that true? That means basically it comes out that they would always start asking questions and start getting them afraid. Why? Testimony is testimony. Even if it's something that you want, because you want them to testify that the moon was like that, doesn't matter, you're going to get them scared. So I'm a question. It all depends if it's Nisan and Tishri. That everything depends on Nisan and Tishri. So therefore, that's when we mentioned what we just said, that we're always going to get them afraid. And other months, we don't get them afraid. Meaning, okay, we accept the testimony and that's it. Rava says, is really the din of Acherim. The Tanya was learned in the Braita. Acherim say, "En ben atzeret lezo latzeret ve'en ba Rosh Hashana l'Shana ela b'yamim bilvad." If you remember the difference between, right, was always going to be 4 days. Yeah, it's always going to be 4 days. The difference between them is the difference between, meaning that, for example, Rosh Hashana today was Sunday, so next year will be on the Wednesday. It's going to be 4 days difference. Okay, but if it's going to be Shana Mu'ber, it's going to be 5 days difference. Avdim ibn Adai came and he taught the opposite. What's the reason? Right, Kafa Mubet 20b. He says, when the Chidush Levana is seen at the proper time, so then it looks like Sheker. What does that mean? If we're going to come and we're going to keep them quiet, it looks like Sheker, right? Why? Because there's a lot of people, right, that other people are going to see it, and then they're going to see whether it's Chaser or not Chaser. But here, it doesn't look like it's Sheker. So Amar Shmuel says, we could actually come and be Kovea the day on Rosh Chodesh for everybody, even without needing testimony whatsoever. Right? What does that mean? Do you know how to do this? He says, if nolad kodem chatzot or nolad achar chatzot, which means like this. There's a difference whether the molad was before chatzot or if the molad is after chatzot. Right? So that means if you know the difference between them, right? So then you're going to actually understand. He says, no, I don't know. So if you don't know it, so obviously there's other things that you don't know as well. Meaning that there's always going to be a difference between when do you see the molad. Is it before chatzot or after chatzot? That's why the Ashkenazim, they mention all these things about the molad. Nowadays for us, there's no difference. Right, for the molad. There's very few differences in the molad, knowing when the molad is, but it's not something that is so, so important of knowing nowadays the molad. It's to do with Birkat al-Levana, even though Shita Maran is that you could do the entire full 15th day. Some people say, no, there's not the full 15th day. You could only do the half of the 29 and a half and Tafshin Sunday Gimel Chalakim. You add that on to the molad, and that's when you're allowed to do the Birkat al-Levana.
But why Bayas no?
Because that's I said that because Bayas you could do the entire 15th day. According to Shita Maran, the entire 15th day, you're allowed to do Birkat al-Levana. What? No, you don't need to know the 15th. No, you already know when the 15th of the month is. The molad you need to know in order to add on to the molad, in order to do the 29 and a half and, to get that account. But if you're not going by the molad, it's 15th day. Exactly.
So Bayas.
You need that the night and the day afterwards is part of the month, in order that they don't say that Rosh Chodesh is going to be in the morning and the night before was the month before. Meaning you can never make a Rosh Chodesh only in the morning, because you have to do the Rosh Chodesh has to start already in the nighttime also as well. So if it was before Chatzot, so we already know that the moon was already seen close to Shekiah. If it wasn't before Chatzot, so we know that it wasn't until Samuk l'Shkiat HaChama, until after the Shkiah on the same day. The Mainaf Kamina, Ravashi comes and he says, to get them, to disprove them. Meaning we have to know so well in order to disprove the testimony, to know, okay, you guys saw it, when did you see it? Because if he's going to start telling us, we're going to say, 1 second. When was the mullah? Before or after Chatzot? Accordingly, now we know where they were supposed to see the sun. If they come and they tell us the opposite, we already know they're lying. So we have to know it in order to disprove them. So Rashi said, that's what he said, Lachush Esad. Okay, Amar Rabbi Ziram Nachman says Rabbi Ziram Nachman. By the way, you should know there's a lot on the bottom, but we're not going through it. But if you want, there's a lot of beautiful things in order to see exactly all the different pictures of the moon and understanding how it really works. But obviously, this will take a long time. So Amar Rabbi Ziram Nachman, 24 Shae, right? There's 24 hours, right? Mikaseh Siara. The Levana is completely closed off, right? It's completely concealed. Why? Because it's so small that you can't even see it, right? And this shiur of the 24 hours, which is Nistira, is in all the place in the world. But, right, a little bit of the 24 hours, Nistira Levana Yishana Kol Mamulad, and he says, Ledidan, Shit Me'atika V'tim Nesre Mechata. It's 6 hours from the old one, and it's Tam Nesre, which is 18 hours of the new one. But for the Eretz Yisrael, it's 6 hours of the new one and 18 hours of the old one. Which means that when you're already going to say that it's a new moon or the old moon, everything had to do with what we were talking about of how far exactly, right, is it going to be part of the new moon or the old moon. So he says there's 24 hours, you can't see it at all. But part of that time is going to be the old moon and part of the time is going to be the new moon. The difference is going to be in Bavel and Eretz Yisrael. How many hours is the new one and how many hours is the old one? So the Ma'araf Kamina, the same thing. Again, you want to disprove the witnesses. You want to disprove the witnesses, you have to know, right, all these details. So Amar Mor Tzarishi Alayla Vayom in Chodesh. Now, how do we know? Yochanan says Me'erev ad Erev Tishpetu. When it says Me'erev ad Erev, so you know that from one night means Kippur starts from the nighttime, and it goes until the next nighttime. The Shaki says Ad Yom Echad Esrim LaChodesh Ba'erev. What does that mean? The Moed finishes the nighttime, which means just like it starts in the nighttime, it finishes in the nighttime. What's the difference between them? Abaye says Mashmau Dorshinik Minau. How do you are Doresh Pasuk? Rava says Chatzot Laila is the difference between them. The difference is what happens now if you see the old moon, right before Chatzot Laila. That's the difference between them. Okay? So Amar Rabbi Ziram Rav Nachman, Kol Seika Lekamesh Adina, the main right? What did you just say? Anytime that there's a safek, you're going to make it into Yom Tov. Lo Lekamesh Adina, you're going to make the Yom later on, right? Which means that if you have a doubt whether to do Yom Tov on the day today or the day afterwards, we're going to do the day afterwards. So the member the Chametz of a Shitzar of Dinan are based on Dinan. So you only do the 15th and 16th, but not on the 14th. Why don't you do also the 14th? Because maybe Chasru ale Av, Chasru ale Elul. Maybe Av was Chaser and also Elul is Chaser, right? So answers the Gemara. He says no. If it was ever going to be 2 months in a row, chaser, everybody would find out. If you already remember, we already mentioned. Usually, you have 1 month which is full, 1 month chaser, full chaser, full chaser. So, 2 months in a row which are chaser, everybody would find out about it. So the fact that everyone will find out about it, that's why we don't do such a thing. Okay, and that's how we finish. With Zat Hashem, we continue tomorrow.